morning, students. Last time we were doing the dying detective, wherein we had seen Dr. Watson had gone in search of Culverton Smith. So up to there we stopped the lesson, isn't it? Because as per the instruction of Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson had gone to meet Culverton Smith because he had asked him to get Culverton Smith, saying that he is the only person who can cure the disease what he is suffering from. Right, so up to there we had seen last time. So as he was going, he was just waving for a cab in order to ask lift. So there he found an old acquaintance, Inspector Morton of Scotland Yard, right? So Mr. Holmes had found, right? Mr. Watson had found, Dr. Watson had found Inspector Morton of Scotland Yard, who asked him about Mr. Holmes. So this is what we are seeing over here. So on this, Dr. Watson replied, "He is very well," I answered. What Dr. Watson said. I was surprised to see a slight smile upon his face. So saying this, he happened to see a smile at his face. Whose face? Inspector Morton's face. Okay, where was Dr. Watson? Dr. Watson was waiting for a cab over there to reach to Culverton Smith's house. He didn't go yet. He didn't go to Culverton Smith's house. Before that, he happened to meet Inspector Morton. So now whatever we are seeing over here is a conversation between Dr. Watson and Inspector Morton. Right, so this is what. So when he asked about Holmes, Dr. Watson said that he's very ill. He's very ill. He said, isn't it? So when somebody says somebody is ill, isn't it? How can anyone's face show a smile or a happy mood? So here it was shown like that. Inspector Morton smiled at it. So seeing that slight smile on Inspector Morton's face, Dr. Watson was surprised. Why this man is smiling when he heard Holmes is ill, right? However, before I could think more about it, the cab drew up and I left him. So there, before he could think anything more about Inspector Morton, that very moment, cab happened to come to that place and he got a lift. Who got a lift? Dr. Watson. And he just caught the cab and he left the place. The house at Lower Burke Street had old-fashioned iron railings, a massive folding door and shining brasswork. A butler appeared and took up my card. Okay, so the house. Now he reached to Culverton Smith's house. So here the outer appearance of the house is described in this paragraph. That is what you can see. So as he reaching to the house, where is the house? That is the location what is given. The house is at Lower Burke Street. So that is the location of the house. Had old-fashioned iron railings. Now iron railings, olden days houses had iron railings. Instead of, now we have compound walls for fence. So those days for fence, they used to have iron railings. Instead of compound walls, they used to have iron railings. So here, this house also had old-fashioned iron railings, right? Then as he reached, now that is the outskirt of the house. As he reached to the door, he is describing the door. The next thing is describing the door. See how the description is given. So when you write descriptive composition and all, you have to describe like this and you have to write, right? So that is why I am focusing on all these things. So the second point, you can see what he's saying. He's reaching to the door, you can understand. He's describing the door. A massive folding door. Again, olden days, they used to have front doors, folding doors, front doors, back doors. Normally almost all the doors were folding doors. So here massive folding doors means heavy door, bulky door. Okay, so that was a folding door and this door was having shining brasswork fixed on the door. Okay, so it was having, so that is how the door was looking very luxurious. That's what you can understand from this. Then a butler appeared and took up my card. Next, when he reached to the door, he might have rang the bell or he might have knocked the door. So who came out from the house? A butler. Now who's a butler? Butler is a male servant, a man servant of the house, right? So a man servant came to the door and he took his card. Whose card? Dr. Watson's card. Who is this person? What does he want? Well, I won't see him. Through the half-open door, I heard his high, penetrating voice. Before the butler could deliver his message, I pushed past him and was in the room. So who is this person? So the manservant, that is the butler, took the card and went straight to his master. His master was inside. So he went straight to the master and had shown that card, Dr. Watson's card, to the master, that is the owner of the house. So on this, seeing the card, the man is asking, who is this person? He's asking who the person is. To the butler he is asking. Fine. To the butler is asking this. Okay. And second question, he says, what does he want? And what this man wants? Why he is at my door? What he wants? So, well, I won't see him. And then straight away he is asking these two questions and he don't want to know the answers also about of these questions. In fact, he says, well, I won't see him. I don't want to see that person. This is what he says. He denies to meet the man who's at his door, right? Through the half open door. Now, when the servant came to the door, he might have opened the door. So the door is left open. He didn't close the door because the person is standing near the door, right? That is, Dr. Watson is standing in front of the door. That is why he didn't close the door. That is why the door was half open. That is what it is told over here. So through that half open door, Dr. Watson peeped inside. And what he happened to see, he happened to hear whose high voice, the man inside, that is the owner of the house's high voice, he could see, penetrating voice, loud voice, isn't it? And that too, hard voice, very rough voice, right? Before the butler could deliver his message, I pushed past him and was in the room. Now, after listening this from the master, the butler has to give the news to the man on the door. So before he could reach to the door, who pushed inside? Dr. Watson pushed inside the house, right? He just walked inside straight. He went inside because he understood this man is not going to entertain Dr. Watson, right? So Dr. Watson entered inside. Why? He had to keep up the promise that he had given to his friend Sherlock Holmes, right? So that is why he entered forcefully. He entered inside the house. With a shrill cry of anger, a man rose from a reclining chair beside the fire. What's this? He cried in a high, screaming voice. I am sorry, said I, but the matter cannot be delayed, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. So this is what had happened. With a shrill cry of anger, he was so angry, just busted out. Who? The man inside, right? The owner of the house busted out with anger. He rose up, he got up from the chair on which he was sitting. Now, the chair is described as a reclining chair. So, what do you understand by reclining chair? Means a lean back. You can see it in the picture. A lean back chair wherein you can sit in a comfortable position, resting your arms and all, with arms plus the lean back on the chair, right? So, that is what is called as a reclining chair. Right? What's this? He cried in a high, screaming voice. He said, what's this? How dare you entered inside like this? That is what he's asking. What's this? He said. In a screaming voice, the man said. I am sorry, said I, but the matter cannot be delayed, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. So this is what he said. I am sorry for doing so, forcefully entering into your house. Who said? Dr. Watson. He apologized first to the man, isn't it? That's not a good manner to enter in someone's house forcefully, isn't it? So he did it. Dr. Watson did it. That is why he's saying sorry for it. But the matter cannot be delayed. So, and then he says, but the matter cannot be delayed. I can't be late at all because of Sherlock Holmes. And he just says that name, Sherlock Holmes. On this, the mention of my friend's name had an extraordinary effect upon the little man. The look of anger passed in an instant from his face. Have you come from Holmes? He asked. He's desperately ill. He's dying. That is why I have come. Okay, the moment he happened to hear the name Sherlock Holmes, he just stopped. He was annoyed. He was very, in a very harsh voice he spoke over there. In spite of all that, when he heard the name Sherlock Holmes, his attitude changed. Okay, that is what extraordinary effect upon the little man. So there was an extraordinary effect on this person the moment he heard the name Sherlock Holmes. That is what Dr. Watson is saying over here. The look of anger passed in an instant from his face. The very moment the angry face changed. Okay, that is what is being spoken spoken over here. Have you come from Holmes? He asked, and softly he asked, have you come from Holmes? He's asking Dr. Watson. On this, Dr. Watson said, yes, I'm coming from Holmes. He's desperately ill. He's very ill. He's very too ill. He's dying. So he's dying. This is what Dr. Watson told this man. That is why I have come. Because of that, I have come, Dr. Watson told him. Fine. The man turned to his chair and he did so. I caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror over the mantelpiece. I could have sworn that it was set in a malicious and hateful smile. So the moment he heard this, he turned to his chair. He turned towards, you can see he was facing towards Dr. Watson in the picture. He's facing right now in this picture, what I will show is facing to Dr. Watson. Then he turned towards the chair. The chair is shown. As he did so, and when he turned, I caught a glimpse of his face. So the moment he turned, you can see the mirror on top of the mantelpiece in the picture, right? So Dr. Watson saw this man's face in the mirror over there, over the mantelpiece. I could have sworn that it was set in a malicious and a hateful smile. So the facial expression through the mirror, that is what Dr. Watson had seen. Through the mirror, he saw this man's facial expression. So what was the facial expression? The facial expression was cruel. The facial expression was wicked, right? A wicked face this man had made and gave a hateful smile. So this expression he had shown. This expression he was hiding from Dr. Watson. But then Dr. Watson happened to see this expression through the glass, to the mirror, right? Yet he turned to me an instant later with genuine concern upon his features. Okay, and then he turned after a little while. He turned and with some genuine concern upon his features, he just turned. Okay, so a false face he started showing to Dr. Watson. I only know Mr. Holmes through some business dealings, but I have every respect for his talents and his character. And this is what he said. Okay, so the false approach and the false whatever he is speaking, the lie whatever he is speaking over you can see. I only know. He says, I only know Dr. Watson, Mr. Holmes through some business dealings. Dr. Watson is telling Dr. Watson, fine. I only know Mr. Holmes through some business dealing. That is the only way I know him. But I have every respect for his, and I have every respect. I do respect his talents. I do respect his character. This is what he says. So that's the only way I know Mr. Holmes. This is what he tells Dr. Watson. He thought you were the one man in London who could help him because of your knowledge of Eastern diseases. Okay, so now Dr. Watson is conveying that message, whatever Mr. Holmes had given him. The message he conveys saying that according to my friend, according to Holmes, you are the only person in London who could help my friend, help Holmes, because of your knowledge of Eastern disease, because you are well versed in Eastern disease. Okay, so that is why you are the only person who can help my friend survive from this disease. This is what he conveys to him, right? So you can see. So on this, Mr. Culverton Smith smiled pleasantly and picked up his cap. So he smiled at him very pleasantly, and the next thing what he did, he just picked up his cap. I will come with you at once, and he told Dr. Watson, see, I will come with you right the very moment, this very moment I will come with you. This is what he told Dr. Watson. I remember Holmes's orders. I have another appointment, said I. Okay, so now what is the next step that Dr. Watson had to follow as per the instructions given by Mr. Sherlock Holmes? That is, he should not wait for this man, isn't it? He has to somehow make an excuse and should reach at Holmes' place before this man, right? Before Culverton Smith. So this is the excuse what Holmes gives. So he says, all of a sudden I happen to remember another appointment what he had told me, and I have to fulfill that. So for that I have to move right now. So I am moving. That is what he says. Dr. Watson says, fine. Very good, I will go along. You can rely on my being there within half an hour at most. Okay, so very good, I will go along. So this is what he says. Okay, I will go along, I will go there. You can just rely on my being there within half an hour. Within half an hour I'll be there, he says. Okay, at most. This is what Culverton Smith tells Dr. Watson. It was with a sinking heart that I re-entered Holmes's bedroom. For all I knew, the worst might have happened in my absence. To my relief, he had improved greatly in the interval. Okay, so his friend Dr. Watson is coming back to Holmes's house. As he comes to his house, he was very much disappointed. He was very much sad. Who was very much disappointed? Who was very much sad? Dr. Watson. Why? Because he had seen his friend in a miserable condition, and he had left his friend in that condition, isn't it? So anything you can expect. So as he returned, that is what, sinking heart. He was disappointed. He was very much disappointed at this point while entering his bedroom. Whose bedroom? Mr. Holmes's bedroom. As he was entering, soon after he enters the bedroom, what he sees is that he was feeling that the worst might have happened by now, isn't it? So in his absence. So with that belief, he was entering inside, and he felt very much relaxed when he saw him, because he saw his friend had improved. Okay, than what he was earlier, right? So improvement is shown in that interval, in that period, the time between the presence of Dr. Watson and the absence of Dr. Watson, right? In between that timing, there was a change in health, in Mr. Holmes' health, right? So this is what he says. Okay, well, did you see him, Watson? So the moment he saw Dr. Watson, Holmes asked him, did you see Culverton Smith? He's asking him. Yes, he's coming. So Watson said, yes, he's coming, he says. Admirable, Watson, admirable. Now you must disappear from the scene. There is just room enough behind the head of my bed. So he was very much happy. Who was happy? Sherlock Holmes was very happy, and he said, admirable, good work, isn't it? Well done. Whatever I have told you, you have done it. So that means he's coming. Culverton Smith is coming. So now you have to disappear. You have to hide yourself somewhere. He's telling Watson, isn't it? So you have to hide. You have to disappear from the scene. You should not be seen by him over here. So you have to hide yourself. And in this room, there is no much space. There is only little space for you to hide. And where is that space? Just behind the head of my bed. Okay. So where his head is, just behind it, you have to hide yourself. He's asking Watson to hide himself behind his head. My dear Holmes, I exclaimed, I fear there is no alternative, Watson. So Holmes, he said, my dear Holmes. Who said this? Watson. Okay, he exclaimed. So on this, what was Holmes' reaction? This is what he said. I fear there is no alternative, Watson. The room does not offer any other place of concealment, and don't budge. Whatever happens, just listen with all your ears. Then in an instant, his sudden burst of strength departed, and he drifted into the low, vague murmurings of a semi-delirious man. Okay. So I fear this says there is no alternative, Watson. There is no alternative. Whatever I am telling you, you just listen and just follow my instruction. This is what he tells him, right? The room there is no much space over it. Does not offer any other place of concealment. There is no other place for you to hide. This is the only place. And don't budge, he says, and please don't move from here. Whatever happens, please, you stay over there, hide yourself over there, and don't move, he says. Whatever happens, just listen. So whatever is going to happen, that is the conversation between me, that is between Holmes and Culverton Smith. Whatever is going to happen, you just stay there and listen. Don't interfere. Just listen with all your ears. You have to only listen with all your ears. Then in an instant, his sudden burst of strength departed, and he drifted into the low, vague murmurings of a semi-delirious man. Okay. So within no time, at that time when he was speaking, he was very much energetic. Okay, so that look he had given, that is what Watson had seen. The very next moment, what did he do? He went back to the same condition in which he was earlier. So he went back That is what it is said. Sudden burst of strength departed. That strength, that energy that departed, that was lost. And then he went back, he drifted. That means he went back into the low, vague murmurings, the same low, vague murmurings, right? Like a sick person, he was going on murmuring of a semi-delirious man, right? Semi-delirious means unclear state of mind. Okay, unclear, a very sick person's attitude he started behaving. That means he was acting out in that manner. Is that clear? So from my hiding place, I could hear the opening and closing of the bedroom door. I could imagine our visitor standing by the bed and looking at the sufferer. At last, the strange hush was broken. Okay, so who was hiding? Watson was hiding. And from his hiding place, he could hear the opening of the door. The door opened. That means Culverton Smith came to the door. He opened the door and closing of the bedroom. The moment he entered inside, he closed the bedroom behind him, right? I could imagine a visitor standing by the bed, but he couldn't see Culverton Smith, right? So he could only imagine, he could just imagine Culverton Smith coming inside, standing in front of the bed and looking at the sufferer, and he could imagine that he is now looking at Holmes. At last, the strange hush was broken. So finally, that hush was broken. So Holmes, he cried. So there was no silence. That means he was watching from there for some time, and then he spoke. Culverton Smith spoke, right? So I'll wind up to here. In my next class, I'll continue from the remaining part.